Todd, I don't know if you want to talk about this one, but you can tell me. But I want to find out. Todd was talking to me the other night when we went to dinner that he has like almost a direct line to one of the most famous people,
Well,
one of the most famous people
when he was
that-
alive.
when he was alive. He has,
don't know if I can
you
reach
have a
him
direct
anymore.
line right now. It's like that would be creepy. But no, he had a connection with one of the most famous people that we know of, and that's the name of the guy, Stan Lee. Stan Lee was responsible for all of the Marvel, well, not him alone, but I believe it's him and a partner, all of the Marvel superheroes that we see now on the Marvel screens. And I was just amazed, and I thought I just had to ask Todd a little bit about that, just because, it's like, they always say about 6 degrees of separation. This is not 6. It's like Todd literally knows the family of these people. It's like, hey, Todd, I wanna be able to tour the Stanley estate someday. I'm sure it's like, hey, sure, Di, I just fly up to Portland and we could organize it. But this is so interesting. I told my kids about it, by the way, and they're like, oh, really? So it's like, I just want to ask you, a little bit about that, like some of the juice of what you would have seen growing up, being around Stan Lee. Now we see this legacy has been created with all these superheroes. Like, what? Tell us some of that, Todd. Like, what would you have witnessed?
So, I grew up on Long Island in New York. My folks and I we weren't upper class. We were middle class people, and we lived in an area of Long Island that was not particularly wealthy. It wasn't a fancy schmancy community. We were good friends with Martin and Gene Goodman. Martin Goodman was the publisher of Marvel Comics, and they were upper class people. They were very wealthy people, and you saw that just by the size of their house and how gigantic their yard was and the landscaping. And I was a little kid at the time, and I'd never seen houses this big before. Except me and my buddies on our bicycles, we would ride through neighborhoods like this, and as Bruce Springsteen would call them, mansions of glory, right? And we got to know the Goodmans very well, and Martin Goodman hired this guy, Stan Lee, to create comic books for his comic book company. Marvel Comics
So what was the name of the comic company at that time?
So I don't remember the name of Martin's comic book publishing company.
Right.
But he named Marvel Comics after himself, Martin Goodman, Marvel Comics, right?
Oh.
So, I mean, so Martin hired this aspiring writer, Stan Lee, because at that time, Martin was publishing romance comic books.
Oh, okay.
Right? It was just lighthearted romance comic books. My mom even wrote a few comic books for him, right? But there was a need for, I think, more fantasy type stuff, more science fiction-y stuff, because DC Comics had already created Superman, had already created Batman, and was already starting to develop a stable of superheroes.
So DC was out before Marvel really started. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he hired Stan Lee to create new superheroes and new supervillains to go along with them.
Yeah.
And we knew Stan. They lived less than a mile from us. They were in a different part of town. The houses were a little bigger. The yards were a little greener. And we would go over to their house occasionally. We'd swim in their pool, and Stan would, cook out on the barbecue and stuff. And I knew that Stan wrote comic books, but at that time I was a DC comic sort of devotee. I was a Superman kind of guy, right? And this young upstart, Stan Lee, was writing new comics with Spider-Man and Thor and the Hulk and Captain America, and it was picking up speed. Stan was the coolest guy around to have at your house when you had a party. My parents would occasionally entertain and would invite Martin and Gene Goodman over, Stan's boss, as well as Stan and his wife Joan. And I knew them, again, as the years went by, because I was going to school with Stan and Joan's daughter, little Joan, right? And we went to the same school. We grew up together. Stan's star took off in probably around the late 70s when the animated Marvel characters came to Saturday morning cartoon television.
Right.
So the comic books were already, were still being published and were getting, tremendous traction. They were very, very popular. The very first Marvel movies were made. The Spider-Man TV series, started, which was laughable in its
when you compare it to today,
compared to today, right? But it was a start.
So that at that time, was it the Marvel company that produced the television shows and the first Marvel shows, or was that just was that Goodman's stuff? He was his production.
Right. Martin was running the publishing company. Stan was working for Martin Goodman. And I think the TV companies, the ones who created the Spider-Man TV show, the ones who created the Saturday morning cartoon series, those were separate production houses that worked under a license from Marvel Publishing.
Okay.
Right? That, to the best of my knowledge, that is what I thought it was. Later, things changed. After Stan retired and became somewhat of a celebrity, right? Then Marvel Studios took off, right? And more movies started to emerge. Some of them were not affiliated with Marvel Studios, which is now owned by Disney.
Disney,
right. They were the early Marvel pictures.
Some of them were Sony.
And also Fox, 20th Century Fox, and so they had to. I think the early Fantastic Four movies were owned by Fox at that time.
Right.
So I think Disney is still negotiating
Trying
if they
to
haven't.
acquire some others, right?
Yeah. So they, Disney has acquired just about everything. Disney has acquired Star Wars and Marvel and Pixar and everything. So Stan, became even more famous in his retirement than he did,
Before,
when he was writing comics, because the movies took off. And as we were talking last night at dinner, all the Marvel movies, just about all the Marvel movies, have a cameo of Stan in the movie, right?
Yeah.
And he was always like a school bus driver or a FedEx delivery guy, it's one hilarious cameo. There was another one in one of the Avengers movies. New York City is being attacked, and Stan's driving a school bus across the 59th Street Bridge in Manhattan, and all the kids are screaming bloody murder. One of them is Spider-Man. He's a kid. What's his alter ego's name again?
Peter Parker.
Peter Parker, right? He's one of the kids on the bus.
Oh, okay.
And there's there's aliens coming down from space, and Stan's driving the bus. He goes, "What's the matter with you kids? Haven't you seen an alien spaceship before?" It's just so funny. This old guy, driving a bus. And then even after he died, Marvel Studios figured out a way to get his presence in their pictures. And I found that out in the most recent Deadpool and Wolverine movie. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, and not to give anything away, but there's a big fight. There's a lot of big fights in this movie, but there's a big fight inside a bus, inside like a city bus, and there's windows being blown out, and there's blood all over the windows, and there's shots being fired, and there's people getting punched, and it's like the biggest fight you can imagine inside the confines of a city bus. And on the outside of the bus is like an advertising billboard that is suggesting that you get your carpets cleaned by some guy named Stan Lee Steamer, right? And it's a play on words because in the United States, there's a Stanley Steamer carpet cleaning franchise that's very well known and very popular. And it was Stanley, Stanley Steamer, right? So they just sort of juggled the words a little bit, and they had Stan, next word, Lee, and Steamer.
And the thing is that my daughter told me is that Stanley's original name was Stanley, Stanley.
Yeah.
Lieber, was it?
Lieber, yeah. Stan's,
so that was interesting that they actually used that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Stan's last name was Lieber, Lieber.
Yeah.
He changed it to Lee because A, it was shorter. He said he didn't have to write as many letters. But in his biography, he never told me this because I was a little kid.
Yeah.
But in his biography, he wrote that it was harder for Jewish people to get hired, even in the publishing world, as writers or even comic book writers like him, just because he was Jewish. It was easier for him because Martin Goodman was also Jewish. So he ended up getting a job anyway. So, but yeah, on the side of the bus, there was Stan Lee's steamer, and it said like, cleaning your carpets like superheroes for 50 years or something like that. And meanwhile the bus is, go like this, and people are getting thrown out the window, and there's gunshots, and there's blood all over the place, and here's Stan's little advertising billboard on the side of the bus, rocking back and forth.